you're
Heather.
here for like the third Tudor summit. This is the fourth one, but this is your third time. And I think
it is the only time I missed one was when my dad was sick.
You know, how
well,
is
not sick, but when he was in the hospital.
Is he a little better?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that you're here now, because I just think you're the bee's knees. So, in each time you're here, you talk about Thomas Seymour.
The first time I didn't. Well, maybe he was included. Yes, but he was included in that.
Yes, he was.
I feel like people are going to get tired of hearing me talk about Thomas Seymour, but it's what I know best. So
I don't think so. You know, that's your thing. I mean, you've got a niche. You stick with your niche. Right?
It's my shtick.
Yeah, you got your Thomas Seymour shtick. I love it.
I do.
So you firmly believe that these two were lovers, that they actually loved each other, that there was a romance.
Yeah.
You do. You just are romantic when it comes.
Which is weird because I'm not really a romantic. Like when my husband and I first started dating, he would write me poetry and stuff. And I was kind of like, nah, whatever. It's no big deal. Yeah. Most people would be like, oh, that's so romantic. And I'm kind of like a dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, thanks. Just show me love. And that's all I care. You don't have to give me things.
Just do the dishes, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. But you can't help but feel the romance and feel the love between these two if you look at it.
Okay. Well, so now here, convince me for the skeptics. And I have to say, I don't know that much about Thomas Seymour. I just know that you are in love with him. And I know that you have a minority opinion out there. And I know that I'm glad you are sticking. I'm glad you've taken a position that, is a strong position, and you're standing there and you're planting your flag, and I love it. And I'm not going to argue with you. I just know that yours is not necessarily the most popular opinion. So for those people who are perhaps a little skeptical, tell me why you think they're so in love. What can you tell me about this love story?
Well, when you look at it from an outsider's perspective, you can see, people always say he married her for money. He married her for power. And that's the preconceived notion many people have about their relationship. It's that he was just using her. Right. And if you look at their letters between each other from the beginning of 1547, if you really look at it, you see that these are love letters.
Okay. This
was a love story.
So take me back to when they first met, because they have a history.
Yeah. So as I think a lot of people know, Katherine Parr was married several times. Her first marriage, she was married to Sir Edward Burrough. If I remember correctly, he died really young. And then she married Baron Latimer. What was his name? John Neville, Baron Latimer. And he became very ill. He was older than her as well. And he became very ill. And towards the end of his life, they moved to London so that he could be closer to doctors. And during that time, then Katherine Parr got into the household of Lady Mary.
Okay.
Henry VIII's daughter, obviously. And it was in that household that not only did she meet Thomas, we believe, but she also met Henry VIII. That's when he first saw her. So Lady Mary's household was just like a breeding ground for romance, apparently back then. Mm-hmm. But that's when it's believed that Thomas and Katherine met, is when she was in Lady Mary's household in 1543. Okay. And then in March of 1543 was when her husband, Baron Latimer, passed away. Okay. So here she is,
and how old
single
was she
lady.
then?
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
Sorry. How old was she then? About?
I think she was like 31.
Okay.
At that time, so she wasn't young by Tudor standards by any means.
Right.
But she was still young enough. Henry married her, so she must have been attractive. She was, well educated, well spoken. I feel like she was probably admired by a lot of people, and maybe she was considered a threat by others who saw her as, this wealthy widow. But we believe that that's when her and Thomas met. They may have also been like the same religious circles during the time.
Mm-hmm.
They could have met that way as well. But it's interesting to see when we look back at the letters, how close Thomas and Katherine had become at that time, because they had talked about getting married. Right. You know, that's a big deal. You know, her husband died. She meets Thomas and she's like, here's this young, attractive man with a magnificent voice. I had to bring that up because we talked about that last time. And, you know, how could you resist somebody who's probably as charming as Thomas was? Mm-hmm. And so we see in the first letter between them, and the first letter was like 2 weeks after Henry VIII died. They dated roughly mid-February. And I really want to read some of it to you. There's going to be a lot of reading, so bear with me, but I feel like that's going to be the best way to share with you why I feel like these are love letters between them. So I'll put on my old lady glasses here. So in the first letter, mid-February, 1547, keep this in mind, Katherine Parr is writing to Thomas Seymour. And she says, I send you my most humble and hearty commendations, being desirous to know how ye have done since I saw you. I pray you be not offended with me, in that I send sooner to you than I said I would. For my promise was but once in a fortnight. Howbeit the time is well abbreviated, by what means I know not, except the weeks be shorter at Chelsea than in other places. That's just the first part of the letter, okay? So what we can gather from that is obviously by mid-February, these two were still having conversations. We don't know for sure. Maybe they were meeting secretly. Maybe there was a little more going on if she was at Chelsea and she's talking about the weeks are shorter at Chelsea than in other places. Could it be because Thomas visits her while she's there? We know this later on that he does, but could he already in mid-February have been visiting her at Chelsea? So she's like, you know, oh, when I'm here and you get to see me, everything's exciting and time goes fast, but when I'm away, all I can think about is being with you. That's what I take from it. Right. And I'm not even a romantic. Okay, maybe I am a little bit.
Just a little, okay.
So then she goes on. Now, this is the important part. Okay. She goes on toward the end of the letter and says, I would not have you to think that this mine honest goodwill toward you to proceed of any sudden motion or passion. For as truly as God is God, my mind was fully bent the other time I was at liberty to marry you before any man I knew. God withstood my will therein most vehemently for a time, and through his grace and goodness made that possible which seemeth to me most unpossible. That was, made me to renounce utterly my own will and to follow his will most willingly. And then she ends saying, I can say nothing but, as my lady Suffolk saith, God is a marvelous man. And then she says, by hers that is yours to serve and obey during her life. Come on.
Okay.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
By reading that.
She had a thing for him.
She, you know, and back, it was probably mostly lust at that point. You know, when they first met, there was a lot of lust, like, oh, this is exciting and this is new. But, you know, you think Henry VIII, you know, in a way pulled her away from Thomas, and she felt a duty, you know, to be Queen of England and to do what God wanted her to do, obviously. And so for 4 years, she couldn't have this man that she had lusted for so much. And now the time is here, and now she's like a lovesick schoolgirl, almost, it sounds like, from the letter.
And it's almost like God made it happen because he's still single, and she's right. Odds.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like the best way to start this, because clearly she has feelings for him. So then in return, of course, Thomas writes her back. And during this time, he's in London because obviously this is at the beginning of Edward VI's reign, and he's got a lot of work to do. He's an important figure. So in his response,
what is he?
You're Thomas. In his response, he says, and I'm just going to take little pieces from this. And being more desirous to hear from you than as I thought ye desired to hear from me, as yesterday in the morning I had written a letter unto your highness upon occasion that I met with a man of my lord Marquess, as I came to Chelsea, whom I know not. So he runs into a man who knows Lord Marquess, which I'm assuming is probably William Parr, her brother.
Okay.
And apparently he didn't know this guy. This guy then he says, who told Nicholas Throckmorton that I was in Chelsea Fields with other circumstances which I defer till a more leisure. So this gentleman is saying basically that Nicholas Throckmorton was told that Thomas was seen in the fields of Chelsea, which we've learned later that he's been sneaking into Chelsea. So this is right, not long after the mid-February letter that he got from Katherine, and people are already talking about seeing him near Chelsea. And then he says, which letter being finished, in my hand thereat, remember your commandment to me, wherewith I threw it into the fire. So he's remembering that she said, we shouldn't write each other for a fortnight. And the night before he receives the letter from her, he's feverishly penning a letter to her, telling her all of these things. But then he gets to the end and realizes, I can't send this to her because we made a promise, and he throws it in the fire.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he says, and for that it hath pleased you to be the first breaker of your appointments. I shall desire your highness to receive my thanks for the same. So he's like, thank you for being the first one to break it, because I was going to, but you did it for me. I just think it's so cute. And then he closes it by saying, and this is kind of interesting to me. He says, I beseech your highness to put all fancies out of your head that might bring you in any one thought, that I do think that the goodness you have showed me is of any sudden motion, as at leisure your highness shall know to both our contentions. And thus, for lack of leisure being sent for to my lord my brother, I humbly take my leave of your highness. So to me, it's an interesting one when I read that, because I can't tell exactly if he's kind of warning her a little bit, like, be careful what you put in these letters, because some people are going to be able to see it. And, it almost, when I read this, I almost see when he says to put all fancies out of your head that might bring you in any one thought. It seems to me like maybe Katherine is pushing a little harder than Thomas for this relationship. And she's like, let's just, let's get on with it. And he's like, whoa, slow down. We might be going a little too fast. I'm sure he wants to go fast,
right? But
he understands the implications, I think.
Right.
And then he ends it and he says, from the body of him whose heart ye have. That's sweet. The reaction from you. And then at the end, in the postscript, I think this is so cute too. He says, I never overread it after it was written. Wherefore, if any fault be, I pray you hold me excused. Isn't that adorable? Like, he's like, I wrote this letter really quick and my handwriting's bad. And if I made mistakes, I'm embarrassed and please excuse me. Like, he wants to impress her.
Yeah.
I think it's cute.
It's kind of like when people send emails and it says, pardon the spelling because it's sent from my iPhone or whatever.
Right. Yes, exactly. It's the same thing. So he's a little insecure about it. And he wants, I think he's trying to impress her too.
Right.
His nephew is king. So he's the uncle of the king, which many would think means he's a very powerful man, but he still has many insecurities, as we're kind of noticing from these letters.
Right. And also who knows how he got on with his brother, and he didn't have that much responsibility for being the uncle of the king. So he still needs to prove himself with that.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother story.
Right. So then, being the devil's advocate, could not the case be made that she was pushing for this, and then he saw that there was this opportunity for him to come in and get more power from this lady who clearly wanted him, and that maybe that might be what he has planned?
I can't disagree with that. I think it's possible. I think it's possible for him to have looked at it as a bonus.
Okay.
He's like, I had a lot of feelings for this lady 4 years ago, and I can renew those feelings, and as an added bonus, now I'm also going to be the husband of a queen, essentially.
Okay.
You can't blame him for that. I mean, all the men during that time were out for power.
Right. No, for sure. Okay. And so, let's see, you wanted to talk about the other letters that follow.
Yeah.
So tell me more.
So now we come to the third letter. Hang on. I need to get a chain for them so that I don't lose them. I've become that old lady.
That's awesome.
Excuse me.
That's awesome.
Okay, so then the next letter is the first one where there's any mention of them being married.
Okay.
And this one is from Katherine to Thomas, and it's dated roughly probably April of 1547. Okay.
So a couple months later.
Yes. Yep. And so in the letter, and I'm just going to pick out the main part, which kind of talks about their relationship. And she says, when it shall be your pleasure to repair hither, ye must take some pain to come early in the morning, that ye may be gone again by 7 o'clock. And so I suppose ye may come without suspect. I pray you, let me have knowledge near night at what hour you will come, that your portress may wait at the gate to the fields for you. So this is where she's setting up their late night. We already know that they must have been meeting in mid-February, but now she's like, let's maybe be a little bit more discreet about this. Come late at night. We'll make sure that you leave by 7 in the morning so that nobody sees you. Mm-hmm. And then she signs it with, by her that is and shall be your humble, true, and loving wife during her life. I hope everybody is making that sound right now, because I just feel like, there are so many times in
chat if you're going,
yes, because I'm sure.
Or if you're feeling cynical about it, you can do that too.
Right. Send an angry face. Well, I know a lot of people don't believe what I say, but I just got to give them a chance. And we got to look at this a little differently than I think most people have been looking at it. Okay. So then in the next letter, Thomas writes her, and he sounds like he's a little bit worried that people are starting to figure out what's going on. He goes to Catherine Parr's sister's house, Lady Herbert, and Parr and her husband, William Herbert, and he's dining with them. And Lady Herbert is maybe making little hints that she has an idea that there's something going on between her sister and Thomas, even though they're supposed to be keeping this secret. And so he says in his letter to Katherine, she waited further with me, touching my being with your highness at Chelsea, which I denied, being with your highness, but that indeed I went by the gardens as I went to see the bishops of London's house. It stood till she told me further tokens, which made me change colors, who, like a false wench, took me with the manner. Okay. And then he says, for the which I render unto your highness my most humble and hearty thanks, for by her company, in default of yours, I shall shorten the weeks in these parts, which heretofore were 3 days longer in every of them than they were under the plummet in Chelsea. Like, you can't say these aren't love letters. The way they're talking to each other, he's like, I'm so happy I have your sister here when you're not here. And he can't wait to be with her again at Chelsea. Mm-hmm. They were in love, people.
Yeah.
And then after that, basically the letters, they have more lovey-dovey stuff in it, but I'm sure most of you aren't interested in hearing me read more about this. I do intend to make this into a blog too. So after the show, I'll post it so that everybody can go through and read it themselves as well.
Okay.
I think that's only fair. Then you can determine yourself.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think certainly the love letters are beautiful. And so what else is there besides these love letters that make you think that they were actually really in love?
Just the letters.
Okay, just the letters.
It just seems like, I guess I shouldn't say just the letters, but also when we're talking about Katherine on her deathbed and the Elizabeth Tyrwhitt confessions, saying that Katherine said all these horrible things about Thomas. But then at the same time, when we look at it, we also see where she talks about Thomas crawling in bed and holding Katherine to ease her, or sitting by the bed and holding her hand. Why would he do that if he didn't love her? Most men at that time, I think, would just leave. They'd be like, whatever, the old lady's dying, I'm going to go take care of business. But he stayed with her. And even while she was still alive, he was really worried about protecting her name. And I think after the secret marriage came out, when everybody found out that they were in marriage, there was a lot of bad talk about Katherine. And so Thomas even tried to pass a bill through Parliament that was, to stop people from saying mean things about her. So he was fighting for her. He was sticking up for her. And I think they were a good team together. And, when people say that she grounded him a little bit, or she was the reason to his insanity, or, like he needed somebody more stable to put him in line and to say, okay, maybe we should calm down a little bit. Maybe we should talk about this. And here's what I think would be the best option. And when she died, he no longer had that. And I think everybody will agree that's when he went off the rails. He had lost this woman that he loved. He had this daughter with her that now, he's like, great, I just lost the love of my life and we have this baby and I'm not equipped to take care of a child. And I feel like he went off the rails and he made a lot of poor decisions. I would say that everything that he's been accused of is true. I think some of the stuff he did do, but he was sad.
Yeah. And we all do rash things when we're sad.
Right. I do it when I'm happy.
Yeah. No, for sure. We can't just be judged by one action.
Exactly.
Or 10 actions or 50 actions.
Okay, maybe there are a few. I'm not saying he's perfect.
No,
this is one of the things.
I do it.
I'm really working on for my nonfiction book on him. I'm kind of working on it at the same time as my fiction book. Yeah. So my fiction book, I had the first draft finished and I'm working on the second draft, which of course proves to be a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So when I get overwhelmed with editing that, then I go back over to the nonfiction book. And I'm really looking forward to sharing everything that I've collected over the last 3 years and to show everybody all the evidence that I have and say, okay, now let's look at his active attainder and let's look at the 33 charges against him. And let's see if things that he's always been accused of are in that active attainder. It seems odd to me that people just assume everything is true. And when I look at him, being found guilty of treason and being beheaded, some of that I think was pushed on him or made to seem worse than it really was. And I really want to be able to clear that up a bit.
Yeah.
From the end of his life.
Yeah.
He was a popular guy. In 1532 is when he got his first grant from King Henry VIII. Yeah. So he wasn't even, brother-in-law to the king at that time.
Right. No, and like I said, I swear he is in heaven or the afterlife or wherever he is, wherever his soul is out there in the universe. And he's going, finally, somebody gets me. Rebecca gets me. It's just taken 450 years, but somebody finally gets my soul. And it's you guys are going to have such long conversations then too. When he's going to be like, Rebecca, you saved my name. Thank you. So, you're doing something really great for him.
What should I ask from him in return? I don't know. This is something I have time to think about. Okay, Thomas, I cleared your name. What are you going to do for me now?
This is like a whole different level of discussion.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I just went there.
Maybe he could work some magic and make sure your book sells like 100,000 copies.
Oh, that would be amazing.
So Thomas,
if I sell one, I'll be happy.
So now I want to ask you, and then I want to have you talk about your books and how people can support you and everything like that, because you actually do more than just talk about Thomas Seymour. I do, yeah. Surprise. So I want you to tell me, and I'm going to just ask this as being devil's advocate here, the whole tickling with Elizabeth. Discuss. How did I know you were going to go there? Well, it's something I know. I'm not the only person who's going to be thinking this. I actually, like I say, I don't have an opinion. I don't have a horse in this race. I don't know enough to have an opinion, but I'm positive that someone out there watching this right now is saying, oh, but Elizabeth and the tickling, Elizabeth and the tickling. So for that one person, whoever they are, discuss. Okay.
I'm going to start this by talking about the alleged proposal to Elizabeth prior to him marrying Katherine, because that was out there. And I even fell for that one without understanding that the letter is more than likely fake. Because it's been proven that Letty, old historian, I think from the 17th century, fabricated some letters. Yeah. So we have this letter from Elizabeth that supposedly is turning Thomas down on a marriage proposal. And a lot of people stick to that, and they still say, what, he proposed to Elizabeth before he married Katherine Parr? No, he didn't actually. And I recently realized that I had an old blog post on Tudor's Dynasty that had that letter and said the same thing. And I was like, oop, I better take this down. Right. Yeah. And I felt like I was ashamed because I thought, wow, here I am defending him. And then I have this letter up on my blog. But
did you say you're sorry to him?
Did I what? Did I say I'm sorry?
To Thomas? Because he's up
I
there
didn't. Thomas, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There, I just did for you. But anyway, so he didn't propose to her before then. As far as the tickling that happened at Hanworth or at Chelsea, whichever place, I have such a hard time with that because obviously the only evidence that we have of anything is Kat Ashley's testimony about it. And I worry that Kat Ashley just said the things that she said about Thomas because she was worried about being tortured. They arrested her and Thomas Parry late at nights and brought him to the tower. How terrifying, right? And Anaskew had been executed and tortured, like 3 years earlier. So it wasn't something that couldn't happen. And so I think she had that in mind too when they went to the tower. Even G.W. Bernard says that he believes that she was psychologically tortured. And so when you're in that state, sometimes I think you'll say anything just to be let go because you're like, I'm going to get them just to leave me alone and I'll just say whatever they want me to say.
That's why torture doesn't really work because people just say whatever you want.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I keep going back to the fact that we don't have any testimony from any of Elizabeth's other ladies in her household, which seems odd to me. Like, why did they not interview any other of her ladies like they did for Catherine Howard? Oh, my camera's a little, sorry about that. With Catherine Howard, we know that they interviewed her ladies in waiting to find out what was going on. Why don't we have any testimony from Elizabeth's ladies if that was such a big deal? And why didn't we hear from anybody else other than the people that Kat Ashley told? And that's the part that kind of gets me a little bit too, because we have Kat Ashley spreading all of these rumors. And of course the tale, it's like the telephone game. Kat Ashley, she tells, and I might get it mixed up here. I don't remember if it's Parry or Harrington. She tells one of them that Thomas Seymour caught Elizabeth in the gallery in an embrace with a man. Okay. And then she tells somebody else that no, it was Katherine Parr that caught Thomas and Elizabeth together. So which is it, Kat? It can't be both of them. So to me, then I just immediately throw that out the window and I go, okay, we're just going to negate that altogether because we don't know what the truth is. Even the person who's telling the story is telling two different stories.
Okay.
So let's throw that out. The tickling really gets me. Like I'm torn on it because she was, the daughter of Henry VIII. She was considered attractive when she was younger. She was very smart. And I would say she would probably be similar to a younger version of Catherine Parr. So was he flirtatious with her? I don't know. It's possible. He was a dude, He was a guy during that time and it's possible, but I don't know that he would do the things that have been said that he did.
And his wife was pregnant, so he probably had that going on.
Right. And it wasn't unheard of for the men to sleep around while their wife was pregnant.
With the princess, sure.
Right, but maybe not with Princess Elizabeth. I'm torn on that. I think hopefully I can come to a better conclusion for my book.
Okay.
And then I can say this is for certain what I think is the truth, and then go with it. I mean, I already have ideas of things that I want to put out there for the book that maybe people already haven't been talking about, or changing some views, long-standing myths about Thomas.
Yeah.
I just want to share him with everyone. I want everybody to love him and love his story the way that I do. And I always want to defend him. And it's so hard sometimes because I see in random threads on Facebook, I'll see people say something about Thomas and Elizabeth, and I can just feel my blood boil. Yeah. I can feel it, my blood pressure rising. And I'm like, oh, stop repeating these things, because some of the things that are repeated aren't true.
Yeah.
And I always have to remind myself that on media, in the Tudor world, not everybody is as far along in researching and understanding it as I am, or as some other people are who have been doing this for a while.
I feel like that with Lady Margaret Beaufort when I see people posting things about Lady Margaret Beaufort and how horrible she was and how she killed the princes.
The princes, yeah.
Even, like, what the one show has her killing Jasper Tudor, and it's like, what are you even, so.
That's right, the White Princess.
No, I love Lady Margaret. Stop it.
Yeah, she definitely. Yeah, she hasn't. History hasn't been good to her either.
No,
it would be nice. I mean, I feel like she did a lot for the Tudors, but yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, she kind of like made them happen, but yeah.
She was kind of the mother of them all, but besides that, she killed the princes.
Right. So, okay. So I know how you feel about, I mean, I understand your feeling with Thomas, because that's how I feel about Lady Margaret. So I'm glad that I'm glad that Thomas has a defender, and that, you are out there telling his story, which then leads me to asking you. So you do more than just Thomas Seymour. You do have the Thomas Seymour blog and Thomas Seymour page and stuff, but tell me about your other stuff you do. And support you, because you also have a podcast and all of that.
Yeah, I do. So I have tutorsdynasty.com. That's where everything started. That's where you'll find articles on everything Tudor. You'll find a sprinkling of some Thomas stuff in there too, of course, but it's just kind of a little bit of everything. When I first started, it was mostly about Tudor women and scandals and letters and stuff like that. And as I've progressed with my research, I've tried to expand it a little bit more and do stuff like Tudor food and maybe medicine and stuff like that, which maybe isn't my comfort zone, but I know it's something that other people are interested in. So if I don't know, then I find somebody who I think is an expert in it and have them do a guest post. So I have tutorsdynasty.com. I have the Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. I think that's it for Tudors Dynasty. And then I have, I started the Thomas Seymour Society recently. I figured instead of just calling it Thomas Seymour blog, I would just create a society, because I feel like that's what I'm doing. I need to have that base to put everything about him on. So I created that. There's also a Facebook page for that. I also have my podcast, which I started, oh my gosh, this month is 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago in February. I can't believe it's been 2 years already. So I have that. I right now I'm doing about 2 a month. And the topics just... I kind of wing it. I never really know where I'm going to go from month to month with the topics. Usually there'll be something that will inspire me a little bit, and then I'll do the research and write it. Lately, life's been a little bit crazy, so I've been doing a lot more having guests on the show, which is kind of nice. It makes doing the podcast a little bit easier. Yeah. And it's nice to have somebody who's an expert on the topic actually, talking to everybody for me. Yeah. So I have those two. You can support me on Patreon if you'd like. You can become a patron on there. Anybody who's familiar with Patreon knows that, it starts at $1. That's all. I'm grateful for anybody who even does $1 a month, because you've taken the time to donate $1 to help me pay for the expenses that go into creating a podcast and a blog and all that. So I appreciate that a lot. And then of course I have the 2 books. I'm working on the fiction book about Thomas Seymour's life, and that is basically I'm making that into my story about his life and to fill in the blanks for things that we don't know, like why didn't he get married until he was 40? I answered those questions. Was he really responsible for killing the king's dog?
Mm-hmm.
Was he really responsible for these other things? What were his relationships like with people? And it's been a lot of fun creating that story. And then the nonfiction one is just it's obviously nonfiction, so it's going to be more fact-based. I haven't quite determined, right now I'm thinking that maybe it'll just be mostly the end of his life, since that's the part that most people know, and really laying that out and explaining it to the world.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And you're also going to be at TudorCon, right? So
yeah.
people can see you in person and discuss Thomas Seymour with you at length. I can't wait.
And heckle me. I have a feeling Melissa from a Tudor writing circle already told me she's going to heckle me. So I'm prepared.
That's awesome. I love it. That's awesome. Good times. Well, thank you. And I tease you in It's All in Love, because I don't know enough. I just know that you have an opinion that is not the majority opinion, but
right.
I am proud of you for sharing this. And like I said, he's up there in heaven going, "Thank you, Rebecca." And I'm just so thrilled about that you and Thomas Seymour have this bond through the ages. And I just think
I just keep going, hope I have the story right. Because if I'm glorifying all of this and it turns out that he really was a scumbag, then I'm going to feel horrible.
It's in the eye of the beholder, right?
Right, yeah.
Scumbag for this person is great for that person, right?
It's great.
It's all in the eye of the beholder. It's all good. So people can find you on your blog, on your podcast, and all that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your Thomas love today.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much for having me again, Heather. I'm so proud that this is my third one. I wish I could have done all four, but I'm proud and I'm very grateful that you've asked me to be on again.
Always a space for you at the Tudor Summit.